Okay. Hi. So, what is Starfires to you?
Wow, that is a good question. What is the name?
What is the name? What is your message? What is the entire
Okay.
service?
It's interesting that you should ask that because it actually was about 1991, 92. I got my first astrology software, and I had to put a name on it, a business name. And I just asked, what is going to be my name? And I saw Starfires, not singular but plural, and I think it represents the potential for every person to become a star. And I really believe that in the old theosophy, esoteric teachings, that there's a fire inherent within everybody, especially specifically in their heart chakra, and that is the center point of growing into a God person. And so Starfires seem to be totally appropriate for the business.
Where did you see it? When was it seen? You said you saw it on something.
I closed my eyes and asked, what do I name my business? And I saw stars, and they looked like fiery comets in the interior, and just the whole concept Starfires came into my mind, and it all happened really fast. Like I asked, and there it was. I saw the vision in the universe of the stars, and it completely meshed with my understanding of the fire inherent within every person. So that's why I named the business.
So when people know about this and the backstory of what Starfires is, when they come to you, what are they going to expect?
Well, they know that I'm working with the stars. They know I'm working with planets, and that I think that people who keep returning and know me and read my articles and listen to my videos, the main theme that keeps repeating is the potential for every person to take advantage of the positive astrological cycles to increase their fire, increase their mastery and their good fortune, and be able to fulfill their purpose and to overcome the negative cycles. And I think that the electricity that is residing within us, the electrical currents, the fire energy, etheric fire from the heaven world, we can embody it, we can use it, and it's our free will. So maybe people they don't think about it too specifically, but they might just really like the concept of how I do astrology, because they feel uplifted, they feel a potential for becoming the best they can be by getting their chart read.
So those are existing people. What about newcomers? If they were to see the site, see your message that you're conveying, what can they expect from you? What do they...
I think, well, they could expect that I'm going to take really good care of them. I'm going to make sure that they're not overwhelmed by really harsh, psychic, predictive, fatalistic readings. There's lots of different readings that they could get. And I guess that's why we're doing this video, so that they'll know.
What are some of the readings that they can get as a first-timer that comes in and doesn't know anything and wants to explore?
Okay, well, there's a couple ways to approach it. I have people that just want to get right to the facts of what's going on in their year, what's happening right now, what happened the past 2 weeks. They usually come in because there's an event that's taking place that's either frustrating them and they need some answers quickly, or there's a situation where they are excited about a new cycle. So I would recommend that they get a forecast.
So the first one we talked about was the forecast, right?
Yeah, and the forecast is live, planets live, transiting planets live in real time, where they are anytime in the distant future, couple months past. People want to look ahead maybe for a week, 2 weeks. They want to give me significant dates like travel dates or business meetings. We can look at those dates, but in general, people want a 1 year forecast, like an update, and they want to see a year ahead, starting from the moment that we are meeting, and I'll go month by month and tell them all of the amazing things that are happening in the person's life. And it's amazing how many individual astrological cycles are going on in a person's life at 1 year time. There could be 10 to 20 different cycles that are major. And each one of them will separate, we'll examine the beginning date, the peak date, and then the waning, the end date. And if they're difficult, challenging astrological cycles, it's not like it's scary or burdening or anything, because they actually can create a little bit of pressure for the person to grow and overcome something or solve a problem that's been looming in their mind for a while. The positive ones they would definitely want to know, because everybody likes good cycles when the world is the way it is right now. It's really, really hard. And so looking forward to something helps them plan their life in a really exact way. So now that is about an hour and 15 minutes for a forecast. And it's fascinating, actually.
What's the forecast itself is predicting things within your year, so it's more like a weather map for them. So you would like to avoid bad weather, so that's changing deeds in your own life at the time based on this information to help you cope with the bad weather.
Oh, that's a really good point. Like, I just did a reading for someone today who was looking at her college boy's cycles ahead because she's concerned about his health. And so we're looking at potential difficult, challenging times coming ahead, looking at the 1 to 2 week window where she wants to make sure that he's okay. I mean, this is a serious situation. It's not like she's overly mothering him, but now she knows what dates in general to help him, chill out and calm down a little bit and not go out and play rugby or something, because he's got a condition. So it's helpful for those situations. It's helpful to know if there's a big astrological cycle that might be quite challenging, such as from Pluto or Uranus that comes around maybe only once in a lifetime, and we're looking a couple of years ahead saying, well, there's this situation coming up pretty soon. What do you think this might mean? This is what it looks like to me. This is the house that the planet's in, the sign that it's in, the aspect that it's making might create this kind of weather or this kind of condition. And usually the client knows right away what I'm describing, and they're going, oh shoot, I was hoping I didn't have to deal with that for a while. And I go, well, here's the date it begins. And so then they can rearrange, if they like, their life a little bit so that they can hurry up and get it out of the way or solve it as much as possible. And it really actually can put them on a better, happier timeline.
So do you have tools, any kind of suggestions, things that you can provide with your customers to help them through these certain times?
I do, actually. That's a really good question.
Okay.
People don't usually ask that, but I don't even think they know it's available.
Is that something you want to talk about in your video? The tools, like mantras and whatnot?
Yeah.
Do you want to describe maybe some of the tools that you have that you'd be able to help them with, things that would...
Well, people, thank God, are into affirmations now. Of course, just logically analyzing what is the situation and can you physically maneuver things around to make it better. There's that. But then the affirmation, they can add, like I can type out or record for them an affirmation that would be calling on the fire, the light, and God into their situation to alleviate and to transmute or to reverse or to mitigate the particular negative astrology cycle of, and then we could name the planet, the transiting planet, such as Pluto at 12 to 14 degrees Capricorn in my such and such house, opposing my Venus at such and such a degree in my, 7th house, something like that. And we could call for the positive to be anchored instead of the potential negative. That could be a positive affirmation that they could give as much as they want. And it actually, the power of the spoken word, actually, with the details, specific details of what they're asking the universe to mitigate or to teach them or transmute before it really comes in, it's great. It really works.
So the power of the spoken word can also work in adverse effect, so it can affect them negatively if they do it incorrectly or have the wrong mindset, perhaps, or...
Right. Well, that is pretty universal for anyone into affirmations. We have to use particular words and phrases. Louise Hay was the best at creating positive affirmations, and the I am like real time. I am healthy. I am joyous. I am positively moving through all situations regarding my employer and my work projects, happily, successfully completing all these things to the best of my ability, creating success for my company consistently. That would be an affirmation. And then you could say, and I call to my higher self, my angels, and the light to mitigate and transmute the negative, unfortunate or challenging aspects of my astrological cycles, such as, and it is done. You know, they could do something like that. That's if people really get in to the affirmations and they want to spend the time. I don't mind creating them, recording them, typing them out for them. I think that actually is the ultimate reading. They get their forecast, they get their affirmation, and they walk away with their CD, their recording for the whole year ahead, and they've got tools to use. I have some people that just pray. You know, they get the astrological cycles and they pray for the positive ones to be expanded for the best use of it to manifest, and they pray for God or the angels to mitigate the negative. And they don't want it so detailed. They just know what they need to ask for. And it really, really works. People swear by it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So you said the forecast, the affirmation, and what was the other one? You said there's like...
just figuring out between us, you know, what else physically they could go throughout their day to mitigate the situation.
So this is the basic package, is the forecast.
People really, really want that. I think 90% of my clients ask for what's going on in the year ahead. The next one is the natal chart. You know, most people kind of have an understanding of what their natal birth chart is. With all of them, I need their birthplace, their birth date, and their time of birth. If they have it, it's the best. The natal birth chart is read either in great detail. I can definitely do a seriously deep analysis of it, which takes a little prep time. They come in. We might be talking about all of their life, their career, their divine plan, their purpose in life, their family life, their emotional needs, their physical needs, their health. I mean, it covers everything. And
so it's a big picture type.
It is their whole life.
Yeah.
Within that chart is also something called the destiny or the divine purpose. It's called the black moon, and it's not really a moon. It's a point in space that denotes the place where the person just innately feels compelled to express themselves in a particular way that is like a calling. And everybody has their own unique calling. So you can find that where the black moon point is.
Is this another chart service?
I usually incorporate it in the birth chart reading. I can also have people, when they want their birth chart and their black moon or their divine plan read, we can just do it impromptu. They come right in, I pull the chart out, and we just start talking about it. That's not that hard for me to do that. But if they want a very, very thorough job, then I can take notes and really prep, you know, as we're going through it, getting really, really detailed. So
those kind of charts, they need some prior information first.
Yeah, I need their birth date and their time of birth and their place of birth, and then I can really start working on the notes. But that reading, to have a full, serious birth chart reading, would be probably about an hour and a half to sit and really do it right. There's a couple of other charts too that can go with that. So, like on my description of services page, I've got the natal chart, the forecast, and then there's a couple charts people might not be familiar with. They're called the higher chart, the Christ chart, and the karma chart. And so these are both separate charts you can get in addition. And that is, the higher chart is really fascinating. I still haven't quite figured out how it works, but you combine your birth chart with a particular date that is very special. Everybody's chart is combined with this one particular unique date that derives a moment in time and space where some event took place that would be an extraordinary gift of locking the person into their real higher self versus their humanness and all their foibles. So this chart's really pure, and it can describe and define the person's ultimate potential that isn't that difficult to reach. Once I start describing this higher chart, most people say, I'm already doing this, and they feel happy and free, and it's effortless, like it just comes naturally. It's a little bit different than their divine plan, the black moon, because the black moon is a very powerful, compelling force in the chart, whereas the higher chart is going to be describing like a whole nother birth chart, only at a higher etheric level that they operate. And there's nothing negative in the higher chart. You can do a forecast around the higher Christ chart, just like you can do it around your natal chart. The karma chart is also taking your birth chart and combining it with a specific date when the karma on the planet became very, very dark, very heavy. You combine that date with their birth chart and make a composite chart, and that will reveal the burden that the person came into this life to have to deal with. And it doesn't matter how old or how young the individual is when they were born. I use the same specific date and time for every single one, and it's absolutely accurate and fascinating. That karma chart will show the compelling drive the person feels inside to do this particular thing throughout their life. Like they're drawn and compelled to feel satisfied and have resolution and completion with this particular area where the karma sun resides, one of the houses. And it's the wrong thing to do. Every time they are emotionally, obsessively go back there and try to regurgitate it and revolve it and resolve it, they're going to get hurt. And so it's wonderful to know where that is, talk about the pattern, so that, I mean, every time I find myself emotionally trying to be tempted to go back into that pattern, I'll go, oh my God, I'm doing my karma chart again. I'm falling back into that pattern. I pull myself back. I remember my higher chart and what I really could be focusing on. I remember my sun sign's position in my birth chart and what I really want to be expanding and expressing in its highest purpose, and that rescues me every time.
So it would probably behoove people to revisit the higher and the karmic chart relatively regularly, just in case if they feel like they're straying in a different direction, or they want to kind of recenter or align themselves back into. I mean, they should feel this inherently.
That's a good point, because actually, if you do forecasts or transits around your karma chart and your Christ chart, you can actually see positive breakthroughs. Really good things could even happen in your karma chart. Like suddenly, all of a sudden, you don't have this obsessive hook or pull anymore, and they'll come and say, why do I feel suddenly free of this? I go, oh, well, because Uranus just trined your higher chart or your karma chart sun sign, and you're being liberated from it to some degree. Or you've got this big emphasis on your higher chart that's pulling you up higher. You know, it's fun to look at all three of them. In the past, I hardly ever looked at these two other charts for cycles. And even in readings. But now that the planet is changing, I think we're all evolving and expanding and becoming more. I'm incorporating these two charts more and more with a basic reading. So like if you came in or somebody came in for a forecast, I will probably look at your karma chart and your Christ chart without you knowing it to see if I'm missing anything in your cycles coming up, just to make sure. You can do all of it together. That would be about 2.5, 3 hour reading, maybe 2.5 hours to do all the charts. I've done that many times before. You can do just a forecast, and then people might want to be curious and get their higher chart done and their karma chart. It would incorporate the Black Moon Divine Plan reading. or do the higher chart and the Christ chart, or higher Christ chart and the karma chart together as a package. That might take 30 minutes to do that. Combination, we can talk about the combination of any of them. So it's really, really fun. And can I mention something about the black moon?
Of course, this is your interview.
This is really hard to explain because it's, I'm assuming that the listener has maybe thought about some of these concepts before, so maybe you can help me out and ask me questions. But the one thing about the black moon that is unique to any other aspect of any chart is that it feels sacred. It feels like the soul's cosmic genes, DNA, lifetime after lifetime, coming back, picking up the thread and wanting to fulfill and bring forth some particular thing. It might be every lifetime in a different career, different profession, or a different mode, a different theme, but they're still drawn to creating this thing or accomplishing this thing as a common motivation or agenda. And so the black moon can show what that desire is, what is the need to fulfill that. Because I believe that there's opposition on this planet, and there's light and dark, and they're challenging individuals' consciousness, whether they're in a body walking around in a human body or they're some other form, that has an intention to infiltrate and to dominate this earth plane because it's such a desirable planet. I feel that that we are a threat to them. People of light, people who have great heart and have a conscience. And so therefore, they, like in Paradise Lost, there's a section, a chapter in that book, that amazing book, where this fallen angel was observing Adam and Eve in the garden and absolutely seething with jealousy and hatred that they should have this paradise, and this fallen one has been cast out and is being blocked from paradise. So Adam and Eve, let's just use it as a metaphor, had a divine plan. They both had a black moon, and the reason it's called the black moon is because it got tampered with. So in the chapter of Paradise Lost, this serpent comes in Eve's dreams and begins wearing her down and manipulating her thoughts and suggesting things and having conversations with her to wear her down, and so that by the time he physically approaches her in the guise of a master teacher, let's say, she's completely already been psychically manipulated to accept and yield to this person's theories and ideas. The fallen being or negative force studies that individual's divine plan because honestly they have nothing else to do but think of devise ways to take us over or to get us out of the way. And they look at the divine plan and they say, well, I have a suggestion that will help you get your divine plan more expedient, faster, quicker, easier, or they could calculate and manipulate against that person's divine plan to block them. So it has to do with a personal targeting of an individual soul to manipulate or tamper with that person's sacred path somehow, without that person catching it or even being aware that it's being done to them. And here they're thinking all along everything is fine, they're going along the right path, but they're deviating their path, or they're incorporating different things, or they're giving their gifts away from the suggestion of this being, or whatever it is. It's so many numerous things, and you can see that in the chart, what it might have been.
So have you had clients come in and are convinced that they're following the right direction, and the black moon chart or whatever other chart reveals that they're actually... Absolutely. How have they been affected by that?
Oh, well, let's get an example.
Instead of how they've been affected by it, what can they do, or what are things that can help them realign themselves in the right direction?
Well, we have to discover what the pure motive, the pure power is within their divine plan. And then we start weaving, backtracking, what I see without them telling me anything, what I think is the deviation of that divine plan that has compromised and weakened their ability to fulfill their purpose. And always there's individuals involved. Like, oh, I thought I was just supposed to love and serve everybody. That could be shown like in the black moon is in Pisces. And so Pisces is a sacrificing sign, and it's in the 6th house of service, and the ruler is Neptune. And we find the Neptune is, because Neptune rules the sign of Pisces, we find Neptune in a particular place in the chart that's supposed to bring forth music and writing and art and all of that, and it's beautiful. And then it's in a really difficult angle to another planet, like let's say squaring to Mars or something, or Saturn. And so the person could have been manipulated to befriend and join forces with controlling, dominating individuals that also appear very talented. Ages past, some being could have suggested that they do that because that would advance their career. So all this time now they have a program. I need to work with everybody and love everybody because this is I have to follow this ideal or I'm not going to make it. And then we would point out, no, you're not supposed to open oneself up to being controlled and compromised by this type of an individual. Protect what you're doing, protect your work, and move in this direction instead. So it's not like telling them, oh, you're doing the wrong divine plan. It's how they're doing it usually.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So some people don't have the capacity or knowledge, or sometimes even the awareness to pick out those kind of people, to know who they're supposed to separate from that, or who are the ones that are being influenced, or who are the ones that they are being influenced by. What are the things that there are supposed to be tools involved?
That is the question of the century. I don't know anybody that can pass this test all the time. It is so hard to know who's good for you and who's not good for you, who's making the right suggestions or helpfulness, and who's maybe even unconsciously leading you into a different path. It's just, I think the forecast can tell us whether there's a positive alliance happening. Absolutely. I think that it can tell us when there's something you cannot trust at all, such as a transit of Saturn making an opposition to Jupiter. That is usually a situation where there's a negative force. So, what was I saying? Yeah, you can tell in the forecast most of the time if somebody is safe or if there's a positive influence. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
And then common sense, watch the person. I love the phrase, by their fruits ye shall know them. Knowing that person, knowing what they're doing, watching them in life, this, and if the suggestions that they're making feel right in your heart, typically you're on the right path.
So I know from my experience, the more that you have these affirmations and connections and awarenesses in life, and you're enlightened more and more, the more you're also receptive to influences like that. The more people try to draw themselves towards you, more fallen angels in the Garden of Eden jealous of and envious of your paradise that you've created around yourself.
That's true.
So you would suggest vigilance, I'm assuming.
Good boundaries.
Good boundaries.
Don't feel bad and guilty for saying no.
Right.
And I do prayers every morning to shield myself. Yep.
Did we cover all the services?
No, actually there's a couple more.
Okay.
Relationship charts. And relocation maps.
Okay. What are the relationship charts?
They're just two forms of figuring out what people combined together are going to be doing with each other and how they dynamically react to each other, positively.
Let's read that one. So you have relationship charts and relocation charts. What are relationship charts?
Okay, a relationship chart is when you take two individual birth charts and you see how the planets affect each other, and how the person day in and day out respond to each other harmoniously, or where their challenges are. An example would be, I've seen the best relationship charts when one person's Saturn is in what we call a trine, a positive aspect to the other person's planet, or vice versa. That means that they are in there for the long haul. They're really devoted, and they really care about sticking with that individual and their projects or their life through thick and thin. That's a really nice aspect to see, okay? Or if somebody's planets are falling on or gathering around the individual's career house, or their love life, marriage house, or their family and home house, it's nice to know that this is where that person's influencing their life for the better. That you can also combine the two and make it a one separate wheel. You add and average the two planets charts together, and it creates a composite. And that is such a cool chart, because you can see what the purpose of the relationship is by where the sun is located. Simply same process as the karma chart and the higher chart. Wherever the sun is in these charts will be where the purpose is highlighted. So you can see in that chart what the purpose is, where is the karma. Unbelievably unmistakable. Where the karma is in the chart is where Saturn is in the composite chart. It's never failed to outpicture. It's amazing. And again, they can do affirmations, be conscious of it, aware of it, and work on it, work towards harmony.
So as relationships blossom and change and go through their cycles and phases, does the relationship chart in turn affect that, or is it view or reflect?
I have not experienced, are you talking about, like, can you do transits on a relationship composite chart? I've watched them, and sometimes they make sense to me, and most of the time they don't. And I don't know why.
Because of probably the dynamic nature of what a relationship is.
I guess. It's not predictable.
Right.
A relocation chart is when, with a wonderful piece of software most astrologers have.
So what are relocation charts?
Relocation charts is when you throw your planets up over a map through a software, and like it will, it'll be like a world map, a country you live in, place you want to go vacation, place you want to move to, or the person randomly says, I don't know where to live, I know I'm supposed to move, tell me what the pros and cons are from city to city or region. It's really fascinating. All your planets are arrayed across this map, and we just read where the positive and negative aspects are across the map.
What chart does that reflect? What do you have to compare against in order to compile the relocation? Does it go against their natal chart?
Yes, their natal chart. Yeah. So that's fun. And then when we get really fine-tuned, I like to relocate their birth chart wheel. So you plug up their birth chart and you put in this new city that they're curious about, and it alters the wheel either clockwise or counterclockwise. And the planets will move into different houses and make different angles to the house cusps all around, and that will really fine-tune where they might be really, really happy in a location for their family and their security. It'll tell us how it's affecting their health, their money, their relationship. I have a Venus line running all the way up and down the East Coast, and every time I've been there, everybody's just really, really nice to me. And it's not like you have to move there or live there. It's just nice to know that some of the nicest experiences and people and feelings of like euphoria could be on a Venus line. So it'd be nice to know where your Venus line is.
It's for vacation or just escape or getaways.
Yeah. Or the Sun line is your power line, and the Mercury line is your writing, communication, and expanding your intelligence, your knowledge line. You wouldn't necessarily want to live on a Saturn line. it's very oppressive. That would be Saturn moving up to the top or the bottom of the wheel. And so it depends on where you move to, where these planets are going to situate.
What about charts of the planet itself? Like the way that the meridians line up and the different equilateral lines and the latitude and longitude. There's some magical places in the world that exist based on certain coordinates that exist. Is that related to a chart itself too? Can you have that?
Okay. What are you asking?
You know, Stonehenge and the different obelisks and other different Egyptian cultures and Fertile Crescent, and you have these magical spots in LA with Mount Shasta. You have the Rockies, for instance.
Okay, I think you're talking about two separate things. I think
Ley
those are
lines.
ley lines
Right.
and chakra points and meridians that are deeply powerful in the earth.
So that's
and
individual from a relocation chart or
Well,
anything that you could apply
it's-
that to.
think about 12,000 years ago, when obviously the ancients, when they built the pyramids and the Sphinx, they're building it on a very powerful magnetic ley line area, but they're also pointing everything to face Orion. But it's also matching exactly, if you believe in it, the pyramidal structures in the face on Mars in the same configuration.
And the way the Sphinx is actually pointing towards the constellation Leo back when it was
Exactly.
the age of Leo, right?
So now, even though because of the precession of the equinoxes, it's altered. Originally, the stars were in a particular position to maximize the greatest light energy possibly at that time.
So that's another good question. How did that affect astrology over the years? Because astrology is one of the most ancient arts. How did the structure of the stars and the way that the planets and things have changed over the years, constellations, how did that affect astrological readings and accuracies and whatnot?
Okay, this is where we are getting into the holographic template around the Earth, and that we're all living in a program. It's the weirdest thing to think about, because there's constellations that are real time out in space, and then there are planets that are orbiting in front of the constellations, taking the energy of that constellation's power, personality, not influencing, but charging the planet's magnetism with the influence of that sign, of that constellation, and then we're the receptors, because we're all magnetic, receiving that energy. So at one point, the ancients created a zodiac belt that circled the Earth that matched exactly in line with these constellations. Well, now it's not matching,
Right.
but it's still working. Why? We're in this agreement, universal agreement, that it's still operational and it's still functional, even though we're off 24 some degrees from the original position of these zodiac signs. So
keep the system and not change the documentation, that kind of thing right now, because it needs to, like in the future, if someone's going to try to do astrology, like thousands of years in the future, they're going to have a completely different set of
it's
stars
going
to work.
I don't have a big enough brain to go there. Maybe you can figure that one out.
Right, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. So back to the ley lines and different powers and strength and magnetism on the planet. Would someone's relocation chart affect that? If they had a strong connection to go to a specific place like Egypt or Cairo and they were to live there, and Egypt and Cairo has a strong ley line or a different kind of pole or magnetism that's drawing there, could it affect and polarize them and change their outcome, their fortune?
You mean like if I were to tell them, oh, don't go to Cairo, it's really bad there because you've got Pluto square your ascendant there,
Right.
but they're so drawn there, it's magnetically
Right.
supercharged, and they go, and would it mitigate their negative?
Right.
No,
It won't mitigate.
no.
Because
You know why? What I think relocation lines really show the person, where they've lived at these places before and what happened to them there. And there's, in the Akashic record, there could be a record of that event that's still a danger of reactivating or feeling the same way that they felt before when they live there. Same thing with positive places. They could be drawn to a positive place, and the positive relocation chart could show it that it's very good. And when they lock back into that space again, they feel uplifted and expanded. That's actually what I feel like happens to me on the East Coast. And everybody's got their favorite spot that they just love to be in. Now, there is something that I have to say, actually, there might be an exception. Okay, I'm just thinking I live on a very, very hard line in my astrology. But if I go down that longitudinal line, that's not much different. About 300 miles, there's a magical place there that could actually mitigate, not mitigate, but enhance a new experience that I might not be having where I live in my home. But I think that if I moved there, yes, there is an emanation of something really powerful there for me. But in time, I would still be dealing with my relocation astrology that I have north 300 miles on that same angle anyway. But it would just I would have a different, maybe external influence that is lovely and helpful and high, but I would still be dealing personally with the same challenges.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, are we done?
I think to conclude, what would you be telling your viewers right now about services, and what would help draw them in and feel comfortable to approach and look for these services inside and decide what they want to do?
I think I would start with a forecast. And I would tell them, look, if you just sign up for a year update, and then we get on the phone together, or they come in person, or we can Skype, I'm very open and flexible. Anything that's on their mind. Also, if they want to know anything about themselves, about their life purpose, it's so fluid. We can talk about anything they want and look ahead at the forecast cycle and see what's coming up. We can be as specific or as broad and thorough as they want. And it should just be a relaxed, fun, and super educational experience.
Great. Good.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.